And earlier this week, too, it's been revealed that the Obama administration is now considering opening a new front in the war against the violent insurgency. Peter Oliver reports.
The plan that had been leaked by US military officials is to open up a second front against Islamic State. Now, what this would see would be strikes by US warplanes and armed drones taking off from a Turkish airbase close to the border with Syria. Now, the plan is to drive Islamic State fighters eastwards along that border towards the embattled city of Kobani, creating what's called in the plan a buffer zone, which is something that Turkey has been pushing for along its border with Syria. Well, the targeting for this mission, for those airstrikes, would be carried out on the ground by Turkish special forces, as well as members of the Free Syrian Army. Now, what this all gives us, though, is a problem, because this buffer zone is on Syrian sovereign territory, and the mission itself hasn't been coordinated with the Syrian government in Damascus. Now, those same Pentagon officials that have leaked this information have also said that there is potential for a slippery slope when it comes to fighting Islamic State, that should there be any confusion and an attack by the Syrian side on alliance forces, then they would be responded with in great force. And we could, in fact, see a war between the NATO-backed allies and the Syrian army through the back door, all in the name of trying to fight against Islamic State and create this buffer zone.
Well, Europe correspondent, will these US plans open up a Pandora's box in Syria? Then that's the view of political commentator John White.
We're talking about clear violations of international law, the way that they're going into Syria without the participation or cooperation or permission of the Syrian government. So it does look like we're looking at the prospect of regime change using the pretext of the struggle against ISIS. We only have to look at the disaster in Libya and the disaster that is ongoing in Iraq to see what this would have resulted in.
Well, one of those deciding on the proposed buffer zone may well be Obama's pick for the new Pentagon chief. Officials at the White House say Ashton Carter is the president's top choice now for the job. Let's take a look at who the man is. Back in 2009, he was put in charge of managing Washington's multi-billion-dollar weapons programs. Carter went on then to become the #2 at the Pentagon, although Foreign Policy magazine reported at some stages he often, quote, acted like he was the boss, unquote. Now, he resigned last year after Chuck Hagel was then appointed defence chief, but now that Hagel's going, President Obama is expected to nominate Ashton Carter for the job. Two-time Republican presidential candidate Ron Paul spoke to us, thinks Carter's ties to the military industry, though, is bad news. It'll mean more wars.
The pressure is being put on the administration, and the hawks are growing in number. And I think they're going to keep escalating the war. But they're in a bind. The American government's in a bind because they want to get rid of Assad, and Assad is fighting our enemies, ISIS. So it makes no sense. The policy is so ridiculous. A guy like Carter is not going to straighten this out. And since he believes in intervention, he may well be like the rest. It will accelerate. At least it'll prolong it. And this is what worries me the most. Our administration, especially now, is arguing the case. Don't expect this to be short-lived. It's not like we know who the enemy is and we know how we're going to win and it's going to be over in a year or whatever. No, be prepared. We have perpetual war for the sake of perpetual peace. And nobody's arguing the case now for reducing weapons. There was a chance that we would be back off a few years back, but now with ISIS being the enemy, I'm sure when the appropriation bill comes up, even before next year, there's going to be plenty of money put in there. And of course, the American weapons are being blown up and stolen from our enemies, or sold to our enemies, or given to our enemies, or we've given the weapons to our enemies. So, wow, they're going to have to build more weapons. So the money's going to keep flowing to the DOD, and they're going to keep building weapons. And whether the connection between the secretary is clear or not, there's always a connection behind the scenes between those who administer our policy and those people who make money off war.